Welcome to The Drop, the Grammy Museum's online interview and performance series. I'm your host, Scott Goldman. Our guest today was first introduced to audiences on The Voice in 2012. She broke through in 2015 with her top 10 debut, Crybaby. That highly conceptual album introduced us to her alter ego of the same name. Last fall, she carried the vision of Crybaby even further, releasing a full album and a feature-length film entitled K through 12. Melanie Martinez, welcome to The Drop.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. Before we even get started talking about music and film or whatever, how are you doing in the midst of quarantine?
I've just been trying to stay creative, writing music. I'm working on the script and the album for my next film and album. Yeah.
Great. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. You know, I read an interview where you were talking about your creative process, yes, and you were saying how you prefer sort of a solitary approach. So I'm wondering, in a weird way, whether quarantine has some benefit to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think all artists who are introverted like myself, you know, find peace and comfort in being alone and isolated and being able to create in your own space and whatnot. So it's been really good. I've been, you know, learning production. I'm not really a producer of any kind, but I'm working on it and working on just like, I guess, spending more time working on my craft and the different things that make me feel creatively fulfilled.
So I want to talk about the album and the film. We'll kind of start with the album. We'll get to the film, and they're both remarkable. I mean, not only for the artistry, but the depth of the sort of thematic issues that you pulled together. And if I understand correctly, the album came first.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So did that in some way give you the framework for the project? Tell us about that.
So I wrote the album first, and each song kind of came about not in sequential order, so it was completely random. I think that the earliest songs that I wrote from K through 12 were Lunchbox Friends, Strawberry Shortcake, Principal, Detention. I think those were the earliest ones, and Class Fight, yeah. So it was all pretty random, and then, you know, I just kind of knew that I wanted to stick with this school theme, and I really wanted to portray life through school and show how it's kind of like this condensed version of life, and in some way how we learn the same kind of things, and we run into the same kind of dynamics with different people. As we get older, we meet the same kinds of people that we, you know, knew in school. So just having it relate on that kind of level for people. And yeah, I don't know. Eventually, once the album was done, I kind of just had a feeling in my stomach where I was like, okay, if I piece this together, I feel like there's like a very clear storyline. And once I pieced it together, I was like, all right, this is very clear. And I just decided to try and write a film, which was my first time ever doing it. So it was definitely a huge undertaking. Yeah,
I have no doubt, and I want to get to that in a minute, because it's kind of remarkable. But just in the album itself and the songs, you take on some very difficult topics, whether it's bullying, eating disorders, sexual predators. These are really difficult topics. Why was it important to you on a personal level to kind of bring these issues forward?
Well, I think since I was 14-ish and I started playing guitar and writing music, I knew from that moment that I was like, all right, I think it's pretty much my, it feels like it's my purpose in life or my path in life to talk about uncomfortable subjects that isn't really talked about in pop music. So I just wanted to see, just like all the different ways that I can tell these different stories that people experience all over the world, that, music is very therapeutic for me. I've had so many instances in my life where anytime I struggled with something, I would have an album, usually a Fiona Apple album to help me through it.
By the way, she just put out a remarkable record.
It's amazing. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah. Is that, sidebar for me?
Yeah.
Is that something you aspire to? That, because her creative sense, I wouldn't call it pop music, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing music regardless. You know, I listen to all types of music, like whether it be pop or R&B or hip hop or folk or, you know, like all of it. I think music is so powerful, just like art is, but music especially because I think something about the audio really heals people frequencies, you know, it can really connect people and heal. So I think that's, like I said, you know, since I was 14, I knew that was kind of my goal and purpose, was to use music as this tool for healing.
Yeah. You're thinking about the songs, the topics of the songs, that's one thing. The music, in many ways, belies the topic. There's an energy. There's an energy and almost a brightness about the music, despite the darkness.
Right.
You know, the themes. And I'm wondering, for you, is that intentional to create that tension between sort of lyrical content and the music that surrounds it?
I think it's more of like the contrast is the goal. Like I always loved art that was very, I don't know, just like layered, you know, like there was all this depth and meaning, and it had, you know, like, I don't know if you know, like Mark Ryden's work, or, you know, all these people who have just like so much visual imagery that's so beautiful and so nostalgic and bright colored and just makes you feel really warm and happy. But the subject matter is always usually really like serious or heavy or dark, you know, in some way. I love that contrast, and I think that that's kind of just what I strive to do when I make music, is always have that, just make it layered, to make sure that there's levels to it, you know?
Yeah, you were talking about using music, you know, kind of as a tool to help people heal. But a lot of what you're doing in that process is really exposing a lot of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, being very vulnerable. Why? Why give so much of yourself in that sense?
I think it's important. I mean, for me, you know, personally, I just express myself through music. And while I also use it as a tool to heal other people, I think that my first priority is always to help heal myself by releasing, you know, the depths of my emotions. So whether I'm extremely happy or extremely sad or really angry, you know, like all of these emotions, and just kind of putting them down on paper and hoping that the same way that I healed from it, hopefully someone else can listen and heal in that same way.
Is there, do you have to sometimes, everybody's got a sort of an internal editor, you know, a little watchdog.
Yeah.
You know, do you have to battle that editor as to what's appropriate and maybe what isn't to share?
I think with music, for me, I don't really think about, you know, I guess like, I don't know. I don't really put that layer up when I make music. You know, when I make music, that's when like everything is the most free, and just, I could just express myself to the fullest without any limitations. So I think that it's really important to just give all of yourself when you're creating, at least just for me personally.
Yeah. You know, you know, obviously in telling your story, in telling this story, you're also telling the story of other people, listeners. How important is the idea of empathy to you?
I think it's very important to be able to be empathetic towards other people, and to understand, to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to understand that even though, you know, just in anything in life, it's like the same way that communication is like so important. Like there are these kind of just like generalized like topics that I think throughout the world and the universe even are just extremely important for living beings to comprehend and work on. Yeah.
You made the album with Michael Keenan.
Yes.
How did he help you achieve your vision?
I mean, he's incredible. He's really great with like, just, I don't know. I think collaborating with people is pretty hard for me, or at least, you know, depending on who I'm collaborating with. It just feels like it's really important to make sure that you have a safe space where if you say an idea, the other person will take it into consideration and, you know, not just throw it away as, oh, this will go over a 13-year-old's head, or that, you know, like, because I think a lot of producers do that. And that's why it's really hard for me to work with certain people, because people are so focused on writing like hits, or, you know, this has to be on top 40 or whatever. It's like, it just makes everything feel so dead and makes it feel so sterile. Like there's no creative life living in that moment, you know? So I think it's important, like, to find people like Mikey to work with who just have a different perspective, who are able to open their minds to like other, you know, broader topics to talk about within music.
To you, is that the key to collaboration?
I think it's,
to have someone with as equally an open mind as you have?
yes, I think it's important, but also just the vibe. I can't, you know, there's some thing about a vibe between, you know, people working on any creative project, whether that be, you know, dancing, you know, a choreographer and the person who's working on the dance with them, you know, for example. It's like, I think it's just important to have that vibe, and the vibe is just there with me and Mikey, so it works.
Yeah. Sonically, how is K through 12 different than Crybaby?
I think it's much more grown up, and even just within itself, I feel like it has more of a dynamic between the beginning of the record to the end of the record. It just has this kind of arch where it grows into, you know, this other place where you feel like you're actually growing with the character, which was the goal. So,
do you enjoy the process in the studio? You know, tweaking sounds and
yeah.
You know, messing with effects and all that kind of stuff. Is that something you enjoy?
Yes, that makes me very happy. I love creating just in general, even if it's like a low pressure painting or something. You know, like that just makes me the happiest. So.
When you're writing and when we're recording and working in the studio, do you prefer to work quickly, or will you kind of labor over something until you get it exactly?
Yeah, I mean, I take a while. I usually don't ever finish a song within, like, you know how people always say like, oh, I wrote the song in 15 minutes. I'm not one of those people. I take forever, and I love taking forever on it because I just like perfecting it and making it, you know, I guess the closest to what it is that I hear in my head, because I think that's with anything, like even making film and stuff like that. It's like you want to get the idea as close to the way that you see it in your head.
Yeah. Is most of that tweaking sonic, or will you spend time with lyrics as well?
It's more sonic. Like usually I have a hard time going back to a song that I already wrote. Like if I'm like, oh, I don't really like this chorus, it's like the hardest thing for me ever to go back to that moment and try to rewrite that. Like I just, yeah, but it's more sonically. Usually I'll have the lyric and melody like within that first day, and even the recording of it. And I don't like to re-record or go back to it. I always have the first recording from the first day I wrote it.
You know, we were talking about these topics that these songs kind of focus on. For you, what starts a song? Is it the topic? Is it a lyric, a title, a melody?
Title usually. I have like a whole list of titles. Yeah, I have like a whole like title sheet for every time I have like a theme. If I'm like, okay, this is the theme of the album, I'll then go in on an iPad or on pen and paper and just write out a million titles, like just any title I can think of for it. And then as I'm in the studio and we're working, and if I hear like a chord progression I really like, or if me and, you know, Mikey or whoever I'm working with finds really cool sounds to work with, I'll start with that. And then once I feel like there's something there that I can write to with the music, I'll think, okay, well, what does this sound like? What does this feel like? You know, what story do I want to tell to this audio, to this music? And then I'll go through the list and I'll pick out a title that feels best, and I'll work with it. And if it doesn't go anywhere and I don't really like it, then I'll stop and I'll just start over again with a different title or a different theme.
So if I understand correctly, once the album was done, then you started writing the film.
Yes.
So why, well, let me ask you this. Why take on a full-length feature film versus doing a series of videos on the songs?
I think it's because I did it for the first album. I worked really hard on making sure that I could keep making videos for it, because I really wanted to make a video for every song. And so when I did it for that album, I realized that my dream would have actually been to connect the videos together and make this full film. And so then I thought, why don't I just do that? And then that's how K through 12 came about.
But did you know in the moment as you were starting to kind of write the conceptual framework that it would be a full-length feature film?
No. I was writing it just thinking, yeah, like I'll definitely, like, once I was writing the songs, I was like, okay, I could see a music video to this, or okay, I could see a little visual piece. And it was almost like filling in the visual pieces. Like as I was writing a song, I would get a new piece of information on what I wanted to put in that visual. And then by the end of it, I was like, this just really feels like I can tell a clear story from beginning to end and have this world that Crybaby lives in just expand, you know? And I thought the best way to do that was to make a film. So I talked to Julie at Atlantic Records, and we discussed it and whatnot. And she just gave me her full support, and I'm just super grateful, because I think it's really rare for labels to just be supporting artists with their passion like this, especially with something that's so just new to them. You know, they haven't done it before, so it was definitely like the first time experience for all of us.
Yeah. And speaking of first time experiences, tell me about some of the challenges of turning these musical ideas into written form for a film. You know, you were talking about how you would spend, you know, you could spend endless hours tweaking things in the studio. What was what was the writing process like?
It was very interesting. Like I said, I had pieces already in my head, so I knew that like nurse's office, I knew kind of location I wanted, or you know, just different things, or what kind of like style of dance, you know, sequence, or you know, what would be happening in the story. Just little pieces that I would put down already, and then I ended up actually starting with the shot list, because I didn't know how to write a script. So that's just a little, you know, tip for anybody who wants to just learn how to write a film. Just write it, just do it, you know, like pull out Word, or I did it on Excel. I literally just opened Excel and just wrote a shot list from beginning to end on the entire film. And I time coded it to like each lyric in the film. And it was way more layered, and had so many more scenes prior to having to cut so many scenes because of budget. But like I said, like if you have any desire to make a film, just do it. Don't even think about, I don't know how to work on Final Draft. Just go on YouTube, look up tutorials, because there's a lot on there.
Yeah. And you, perhaps equally remarkable, you were the director. Now, and I'm sure you know this, you know, the director is the lead voice on the set. The director sets the tone and the vision for everybody else. Were you naturally comfortable kind of assuming that role?
No, it definitely took a while for me to step into that role. I mean, I directed the music videos for Crybaby, and that was one thing, but to do a 31-day shoot in a different country and to direct an entire crew of people like every day and wake up at 2:30 a.m. to like go to get hair and makeup done, and then having to direct while also in hair and makeup because I had to be in different places at once. It's just like, it was definitely a huge and stressful task, but I'm so grateful that I even had the opportunity to do it, and I'm just excited to keep making more.
Are there film directors that you admire?
Yeah, I love so many movies, and I don't know much about film directors, but I do love Tim Burton's movies. I love Wes Anderson's movies. I love just people who have like such a clean like aesthetic where it's like, you know, once you see a shot of theirs, you know it's theirs, you know? I've been, you know, watching a lot of movies lately, and I don't really know that many directors, but I'm just going to name those because I think they're my favorites.
Yeah, no, that's all good. You know, going back to recording, if you're an artist and you're making music in the studio, oftentimes you have a producer who will provide feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that relationship is very important, and will provide feedback. As a director on the film,
mm-hmm.
who did you seek out for feedback?
I think anyone really that was, you know, that I was working with. Like, for example, you know, the producers I was working with, or I had a co-director who's amazing, who was there for half of the movie. And it was just like, there's a lot of people around who are really amazing, really brilliant, really helpful. And I also have great friends and family that I always have to, you know, help me out whenever I need an ear to listen to ideas and stuff. So I got really lucky in the people that are around me. So yeah.
You know, I read something remarkable, and you have to confirm this for me. You had very significant plans, unfortunately. You know, we had to kind of put the brakes on it for a tour, and a live visual representation of the film and the album.
Mm-hmm.
And I read something about your intention to enhance the experience
Mm-hmm.
by recreating the smell of oranges.
Oh yeah, all that stuff.
Or orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you got to tell me about that.
So basically, like, we did it for the tour, actually. We toured the US and we did Europe as well a couple times, but we didn't get to, I mean, well, we don't know yet if we're going to be able to, obviously. It doesn't seem like it with touring being over now.
Yeah, it might be tough.
Yeah, but yeah, we had scent machines. We had a few scent machines and we had these different scents that would come on. And I really just wanted to be more immersive, you know, like I don't really go to a lot of live shows growing up just because I'm really introverted. And I think a lot of my fans are like that as well. So it means a lot to me that they'll wait like in line and be in such a like, you know, crowded area. And just a lot of them, you know, have like, it's really brave, I think, and I want to put on the best show possible to people who are coming out to see it. So I tried to incorporate different elements like that. At first, I wanted to do even more immersive stuff where I would like give the audience like bugs to throw at the glass for detention and stuff, but we couldn't figure it out because like the bugs, obviously it's like we wanted to make them reusable so we could use them every night. So we just did it with like the dancers and stuff. But you know, like little things like that. I had these little lessons that would come on in between the songs. So it would give me time to go and do these costume changes. And as I was doing the costume changes, they would be hearing this teacher, this substitute teacher from the K-12 world. And she's just like giving different lessons that correlate to each song. So like for Class Fight, you know, after Class Fight, she talks about how it's really important to put community over competition, because competition is just kind of this negative thing that we're conditioned to believe, makes us better because we think productivity makes us better, you know, like all this different, you know, just whatever, but just conditioning and trying to break down that conditioning and teach people to just look at themselves with eyes of like love and at other people with eyes of love, where you just like, again, going back to empathy and stuff, these kind of topics that are really important to discuss and to throw in there, especially with the young audience. So,
you know, you were talking about, you know, making music that heals people, that you were introverted, you know, as you were growing up. I'm wondering when you were growing up, whose music kind of healed you? Whose music did you seek solace in?
I loved like Regina Spektor, Coco Rosie, Fiona Apple, so many people.
What did you hear in those artists?
Just storytelling, strong storytelling, being able to, I mean, different artists, I guess, provide different forms of inspiration. Like Fiona Apple, just to go back to Fiona Apple, because always,
Sure.
She's such an amazing storyteller, but something that really drew me to her music was that it all felt like a conversation. It just feels like something that you would say to someone, and she says it so perfectly. It's like, it just is mind blowing to me. Like I just don't understand how she does it, but yeah, like that kind of music that's just so real and raw and genuine and just comes from the depths of someone, and you can feel that. That's the type of music that makes me just feel like healed. Yeah.
You know, again, we were talking at the beginning that you're already kind of working on new material, and I read something that you've already got the next 2 albums planned out.
Yeah, like when I say that, I mean like the concepts for them. So they're not done, but the concepts, yeah. So the concept, I'm actually already on like page 48 of my script for my next film. So that's where I'm at now with that one. And I'm actually, you know, starting with final drafts, so I don't have to go through all that.
Good for you.
Or yeah.
Good for you. Any hints about how Crybaby evolved?
She evolves. That is the hint. That's all I can say. If I say any more, it'll give it away. So I'm just going to say that Crybaby transforms and grows and evolves. And that's that.
All right, fair enough. We'll wait for the next album and film. Okay, so last question. Speaking of evolution,
Yes.
How have you evolved as an artist and a songwriter?
I think that I've evolved in many different ways, but just as a person, I think when you grow as a person and you gain a lot of different knowledge of whatever you're learning about, whether it be reading from books or actually experiencing it, which is obviously the best way to learn things. But I don't know, my life has changed so much, but also not really. Like, I'm just kind of learning how to, I guess, tap into 14-year-old me more often. I think that there was a space or period of time where I wasn't necessarily as connected to my inner child, and I feel like now, I just turned 25 the other day, and I feel more connected to my inner child and my creative self. I don't know how to explain that, but I do feel a sense of change within me that is going to be reflecting in the music and the album that people will soon see at some point.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to it.
Awesome.
The current album and film is called K through 12. We'll look forward to seeing you once we're all kind of let out of jail here. We'll look forward to seeing you out on tour. Melanie Martinez, thank you so much for joining us today.
So much. Thank you.